Have you ever wondered how the economic health of a country is measured? If you've pondered this question, you're not alone. Economists, policymakers, and even curious minds like us have been asking this question for decades. The answer lies in a handy little concept known as the gross domestic product, or GDP for short. A GDP example could a giant supermarket filled with every conceivable product and service that a country produces within a year. There are cars rolling off the assembly lines, computers humming with data, teachers engaging in classrooms, doctors performing surgeries, even the cup of coffee you bought this morning is there. Now imagine ringing up every single one of these items at the checkout counter. The total amount, that's your GDP, simply explained. In simpler terms, GDP is the total value of all goods and services produced in a country during a specific period, usually a year. It's like a 360-degree snapshot of a country's economy. It's not just about what a country makes, but also what it does. From manufacturing and farming to education and healthcare, GDP captures it all. But why is GDP so important? Well, it's a bit like a nation's economic report card. It allows us to understand whether an economy is on the upswing, creating more goods and services, or whether it's contracting, producing less. An increasing GDP generally signals more jobs, better incomes, and overall economic growth. On the other hand, a decreasing GDP might be a warning sign of economic trouble, potentially leading to job losses and less money for people to spend. Furthermore, GDP aids governments in making key decisions. It helps identify which sectors are thriving and which ones could use a boost. This information is crucial when deciding on tax policies, allocating funds for public services like schools and hospitals, or implementing social assistance programs. Additionally, GDP serves as a yardstick for comparing different countries economically. A higher GDP might suggest a country is wealthier or economically stronger than others. In essence, GDP is an invaluable tool in understanding the complex world of economics and the financial health of nations. So, why does GDP matter so much? This is a question many people may ask, and rightly so. It's not just a dry statistical number, it's a powerful tool. You can look at GDP as the pulse of a nation's economy. If the country is healthy or is a bit sick, it's a virtuous cycle of growth and prosperity. And it's a vicious cycle of contraction and hardship. As we said, GDP also serves as a decision-making tool for governments. It helps them understand which sectors of the economy, be it technology or agriculture, are thriving and which ones need more support. It informs policy decisions such as where to invest public funds, whether it's in education, healthcare, or infrastructure. It also helps determine tax policies and social welfare programs. But remember, it's not the only measure of a country's success or well-being. Other factors like income distribution, environmental sustainability, and quality of life also matter. In essence, GDP is like the report card of a country's economy. GDP helps us understand the big economic picture. Now, which countries are leading the pack in terms of GDP? Let's dive into it. On top of the list, we have the United States. With a GDP of approximately $26.85 trillion, the US economy is a powerhouse that's leading the world. The American economy is a melting pot of diverse sectors. It's not just about Silicon Valley's tech giants or Wall Street's financial institutions. The US also boasts a strong manufacturing sector and a thriving services industry. This diversity is a key factor in its robust GDP. Next up is China, sitting comfortably as the second largest economy in the world. With a GDP of about $19.37 trillion, China's economic prowess can't be ignored. The country's economy is primarily driven by manufacturing and exports, backed by a vast workforce and strong governmental support. China's focus on investment, both domestic and foreign, has also played a significant role in its economic growth. Third on the list is Japan, with a GDP around $4.41 trillion. Known for its advanced technology and manufacturing sectors, Japan's economy is also bolstered by its service industries. The country's reputation for a strong work ethic and high-quality exports further contributes to its economic success. These countries, each with their unique strengths and strategies, are leading the global economic scene. The United States, with its diverse sectors, China, with its focus on manufacturing and investment, and Japan, with its advanced technology and quality exports, illustrate the different paths economies can take to achieve a high GDP. However, it's not just about having a high GDP. It's about how these countries utilize their wealth to improve the quality of life for their citizens, invest in future innovations, and contribute to global economic stability. These countries illustrate how diverse sectors can contribute to a robust GDP. They're the top performers not only because of their high GDP, but also due to their strategic economic planning, innovative approaches, and consistent focus on growth. On the flip side, which countries are facing economic challenges reflected in their GDP? Let's turn our attention to the nations that, unfortunately, find themselves at the lower end of the GDP spectrum. These countries, while rich in culture, history, and potential, are struggling economically. First, we have South Sudan. Despite being oil-rich, South Sudan's GDP stands at a mere $4 billion. This figure is alarmingly low, primarily due to a lack of infrastructure and ongoing political instability. The country's heavy reliance on oil, which accounts for almost all of its exports and around 60% of its GDP, leaves it vulnerable to fluctuations in oil prices. Next, we shift our focus to Burundi. With an estimated GDP of just over $3 billion, Burundi is one of the poorest countries in the world. Burundi's economic woes are largely due to its high population density and a lack of accessible natural resources. Additionally, ongoing political unrest and limited access to education and healthcare further hamper its economic development. Finally, we look at the Central African Republic. Despite being rich in diamonds, timber, and gold, the Central African Republic has a GDP of only about $2 billion. The country's economy is plagued by years of political instability and conflict, which have led to poor infrastructure, a lack of skilled labor, and a very high rate of poverty. These nations are living proof that a country's GDP is not just a measure of its economic output, but also a reflection of its economic struggles. They highlight the importance of stability, infrastructure, and diversification in an economy. While their GDPs are low, it's important to remember that GDP is but one measure of a nation's well-being. It doesn't account for factors like income inequality, levels of education, or quality of life. These countries remind us that GDP also reflects the economic struggles a nation may be facing. So, what can we take away from this discussion on GDP? GDP, or gross domestic product, is a formidable tool, a compass that guides us through the vast expanse of a country's economic landscape. It's the total sum of all goods and services produced within a country during a given period, usually a year. It's the heartbeat of a nation's economy, a pulse check telling us whether a country is thriving or merely surviving. We've seen how GDP can be an economic bellwether, an indicator of progress or decline. It's the yardstick by which we measure economic growth or contraction, a signpost that tells us if an economy is on the upswing, generating more jobs and better incomes, or if it's in a downturn, leading to job losses and tighter wallets. And it's not just useful for economists. It's a tool for governments too. It helps them identify which sectors, be it technology or agriculture, are flourishing and which need a helping hand. It informs decisions on tax policies, public spending on infrastructure like schools and hospitals, and welfare programs. Beyond the domestic front, GDP also serves as a benchmark for comparing economies. It provides an economic pecking order, showing us which countries are the economic powerhouses and which are the underdogs. We've seen the United States, China, and Japan leading the pack, their economies buoyed by diverse sectors from services and manufacturing to finance and technology. And we've also seen the struggling economies of South Sudan, Burundi, and the Central African Republic battling the headwinds of economic adversity. GDP is a crucial indicator used to gauge the economic performance of a country, encapsulating the market value of all goods and services produced over a specific period. It's a mirror reflecting an economy's size, health, and the dynamics that shape the global economic landscape. Remember, GDP is more than just a number. It tells a story about a country's economic journey, its triumphs, and its challenges.